Well, hello, and welcome to another exciting episode of Skeptics and Seekers. I'm your host, David the Skeptic, and I'm joined by my co-host and friend, David Russell. How you doing, David?
Welcome all. Glad to be here.
Good. Your microphone just got real quiet for some reason.
Yes, because I'm not close enough, I guess.
Okay. You're just kind of leaning back,
I need
relaxing,
a new
not...
sound card with Phantom Power. Even though I like the little controls I got here, I got gunshots. I got slapping for when you get out of line.
Yeah,
I
okay.
got cheering when you do a good job. Even applause. And doing when you're wrong. And then that awkward time and don't have an answer.
I see. Good. Let's lean on the applause switch. Often. So, today we're kicking off a new series. And this is going to be, it's hard to describe this one as a fun one. The next series is going to maybe be fun because that's the one on sex. That's coming up. It won't be as horrible as you guys think, okay? We're going to have a serious discussion on sex, and that'll take a few weeks. We'll be dealing with gender issues. We'll be dealing with homosexuality, so same-sex attraction. We'll be dealing with sex in and out of marriage. So we've got at least one special guest lined up to participate in that one, who I'll keep a secret for now because I can't actually remember who they are. But that's coming. It's going to be a good. I see. That was not the applause button, my friend. So that's coming up.
The name of your guest.
That's coming up. This series, though, we will be talking about killing, a time to kill. This comes from a biblical passage in Ecclesiastes chapter 3, the first few verses, but inside of chapter 3, you can find an allusion to a time to kill. And so I'm going to bypass my general opening statement for the sake of time. And I want to just kind of jump right into a little bit of discussion. I did make a write-up. It's on the board. You can find it. You can read it. You can comment to it. It's skepticsandseekers.squarespace.com, skepticsandseekers.squarespace.com, and you can send me an email. I read them all, skepticsandseekers@gmail.com. Now, this is a series will be going on for at least 3 and possibly 4 weeks. And so if you have something to say between now and the time the series is over, go ahead and put it in the comments or leave an email, and we will get to it. If you'd like to actually be on the show for a few minutes to talk about something or respond to something that you heard us say, I can make that happen. So again, send an email, skepticsandseekers@gmail.com. Killing. Russell, there's a lot that I don't understand about this subject, and there's a lot that I don't understand about the Christian position, and there's a lot that I don't understand about the atheist position, for that matter, because there is no atheist position as near as I can tell. There's just a lot of opinions that seem to be all over the map, and I want to see if we can try to make sense of some of them. So the first place I would like to start is actually not in the write-up. I think that we will get to some of that. The first place I'd like to start is just figuring out some of the places where I think in this series we're going to have trouble, and see if I can spot some of the issues ahead of time, so that we don't get too bogged down in definitional disputes and such, because I think this is one of those issues where when believers and non-believers talk, we are talking about different things. And I don't think that we realize that right away. We're both making certain assumptions about the subject that the other is not making. So, if you don't mind, I'd like to start with some foundations, if that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, I got an opening statement for you, but if
Okay,
you
go ahead.
want me to go with that, okay.
Yeah, no,
Um,
go ahead.
all right. What is the Christian case on a time to kill? Are we supposed to be complete pacifists? Is there never supposed to be armed conflict when it comes to a child of God? It is a tough question. Anabaptists hold to a strict teaching of nonviolence, like my friend Titus, who's been on the show, while Protestants and Catholics believe there is justification for war and violence. Personally, I find the notion of killing sickening. As Christians, we are taught that all life is sacred and intrinsically valuable. When it comes to my job, though, I may be in a position to inflict a violent action that leads to someone's death. This has also brought me a great or great insight on how I look at this. In my position, we are never taught to actually kill. This should be the mindset we all have. It is the only mindset you can take to a courtroom. In situations that call for force, no matter where on the continuum, one is called to stop a threat by the least amount of force possible. If you're in a situation that you fear for your life or that of others and need to use deadly force, you're still obligated to use the least amount of force possible. This means if I discharge my firearm in the line of duty, I am only justified if I use that least amount of force. For example, when I charge my firearm and and subdue the attacker with one round, it would be murder for me to finish him off. However, if the unfortunate event occurs and the person dies, they died due to the blood loss. I inflict that bodily harm. However, it is justified because I had no intent to cause physical death. I see this in scripture. Jesus says to turn the other cheek. However, I think this needs to be taken in the right context. I think he is addressing prideful challenges and insults. This has long been settled amongst Christians, except for a few sects that I know of. I don't think he's talking about protection and self-defense, though. I also think a Christian can serve in a public capacity as a peace officer. We must render to Caesar as well as to God, meaning that we are still part of this world and need to be ready to participate in the world God has placed us in. Yes, we are of his kingdom too. However, this kingdom is not his kingdom is not of this world right now, as he says. If we are to obey our government, we need to participate in it because that's what most governments request. Now, when a government goes too far, then that gives the Christian room to resist. If a government violates or tries to make you violate God's law, then your first loyalty is to God. That is my positive case. But now I must turn to David's blog. David does a great job at setting up the issue. Before today, I didn't even know that he had unsurety about it. But things get kind of haywire when he begins his tirade on Christianity. He begins with the disagreement over the sanctity of life. He doesn't believe it is anything special, nor does it have any intrinsic value. Yet David claimed he values his own life, and at the same time recognizing it has no actual value. Maybe that's part of the thing we're speaking past each other on. See, I think he's already in a bind, though, and can't truly live as if there is no such thing as value to human life. But more on this in a bit. He goes on to claim that Christians live in a fantasy world. And for a skeptic, he is very anti-theistic. I find this challenging because, unlike a skeptic, David does the same thing he accuses Christians of by making positive claims without backing it up. He goes on to say we should be ridiculed and dismissed, and dismisses our philosophy of life or worldview out of hand. It really makes me wonder why we should carry this conversation at all or carry on with it. It is, to me, it's circular at best. And this is all I can think of when I read his blog. You can't be taken seriously. Why? Because your worldview disqualifies you. Therefore, you cannot be taken seriously. He goes on to try to demonstrate it by using the Bible. Yet, just because you dislike a certain outlook doesn't mean the Bible's fantasy. You have to actually demonstrate it is the case that it is fantasy instead of relying on hubris alone. For someone that wants tolerance for others' views, and with a paragraph like that, I fail to see the tolerance from David. The scripture he uses is from the Psalms, and it doesn't even follow to help him make his point. Just because a person agrees with original sin and God's foreknowledge doesn't mean their views are fantasy based, nor that one can't have a scientific argument on when life begins. So, if anything, this verse, I think, corroborates when life begins due to just basic embryology. If the Christian notion of value and the sanctity of life is so fantastical or fantasetical, you might as well dismiss any philosophy of life constructed that claims humans have value. All the philosophers that claim equality and human value should actually be dismissed as well. You should even begin to be skeptical of your own self-value, considering it is illusory. If so, if David's correct, we are all suffering some sort of delusion. Then we have to consider David's scientism. Why is his particular philosophy of life or verification so much better than a theist's? In the next section, he takes on Deuteronomy and tells us that it informs the Christian mind. But clearly, Jesus didn't command this. And this only applies to that time and region. It applies to Israel. Idolatry was a capital offense back then, and sin is to be dealt with, sometimes harshly. God would not tolerate family leading family into the same sin that he cast out the Canaanites for. David wants to highlight how the people of God were supposed to suppress their humanity in carrying out this humane act. The problem is, on a view other than one that claims intrinsic value, David has no basis to claim that this is inhumane. Remember, there's nothing special about life, and he only values his own life and probably his wife's. I would hope so. Otherwise, he'd be sleeping on the couch. But no, I think is killing people inhumane? I don't think so. Is it foreign to man? I don't think so. We can go by country if you want. In the 20th century alone, and see killing, murder, and all sorts of evil are completely human. Also, take a look at our entertainment. We have whole genres dedicated to gore and slasher films. We have a sick fascination for it. And just look at the video games too, how they glorify violence. Only a worldview with humanity having some intrinsic worth can lay a foundation strong enough to condemn the evil humanity afflicts upon itself. Finally, David goes on to euthanasia and suicide. All I can say at this point is I much rather have someone that believes humans have intrinsic value making laws than someone who doesn't think people have any real value at all. Euthanasia, the Christian believes that human life is special, and yes, that God owns it. We don't live for ourselves alone. We cherish life. We also know that when you legalize euthanasia, it can go to the extreme. So with that, I would say on suicide alone that I do believe that there are medical conditions that inhibit rational function. And people can commit suicide, and it's not a condemnable offense. It's not the unpardonable sin. So with that said, David, I'll kick it back to you, and you can start heading into any specific area that you would like to cover more in depth on.
Okay. Thank you for the statement. Well said. Good job. I disagree on some parts of it. I know this is going to come as a shock to you and the audience, but I think that's a good starting point. So let's let's just start with some foundational stuff. This is not the most interesting stuff, but it might be more interesting than we first think. Um, my first question is about the prohibition in the Bible to not kill. Um, thou shalt not kill. What is being prohibited um, in that passage exactly?
From what I remember, from my studies on killing is murder, a malicious act of murder. So yeah, like a capital crime, planning somebody's death and then going about it. It's not like you're driving down the car and a person runs out in front of you and you kill them by accident. It's not. It's definitely has to do with murder, and I think we
Okay,
understand the
so it's
difference between killing and
intentional,
murder.
premeditated killing.
Yeah, yeah, and malicious killing. I mean,
Okay, so how is that different from war?
war, how's it different from war? Well, I
Yes.
mean, the states, this we're not supposed to be uh the states are in charge of that. So I mean, I don't know what that would apply. I mean, Christians themselves aren't the ones that are actually going to war, at least from what they shouldn't be from my point of view.
Okay, but you said it was
I
okay
think
for them to
I
be
think all wars should be fought as a defensive war, and I laid out what I think killing, what should be used in acts of defense and stuff. Aggression, aggressive wars, political wars. I don't think they're just at all.
okay. So you don't think any war is just?
Defensive wars are. So I do hold to an Augustinian view of just war, not totally because I have my own nuances for it, but I do think that there is a point where a nation can defend itself and fight. Whether that means they have to go on some sort of offensive to do it, that's a whole nother story. They have to be truly justified to do it.
I
So I
see.
mean,
So if it's an offensive war, that would fall into the category of thou shalt not kill, in your opinion?
a type of offensive war. So if it, in my opinion, I think like if someone comes over and bombs you, and like in Japan, at that point, I think we were uh justified in beating that future threat from coming back at us. So I think we had the right at that point to go to war.
Okay, so it sounds like you're categorizing some offensive wars as self-defense,
Yes,
first strike
absolutely.
type war. Okay, do you believe that all of the wars in the Bible that it seemed that God and His people were uh, behind, you believe all of those were defensive wars in the category that you just laid out?
Okay. Mm, Let me think. I think that they were judgment. Some of it was judgment, but a lot of it was driving out and so forth. I don't think I don't think I think going to war, like God sending Israel to war, was also judgment on the Canaanites. So I don't consider that just random murder or anything like that. I would
I
categorize it a
see.
little differently.
So that feels like you've carved out a special exemption for God here, which I got a feeling is going to be a theme for a
No,
lot of
it's
what
not a
happens in the
special
next following week.
exemption. I
Well,
don't think it's
because
an
the
exemption.
exemption that I see is that, well, it's God's judgment on those people.
Yeah, there is a
So it's
judgment there.
okay to do, it's not really war when you think of it like that. It's just
Well,
God handing out punishment.
not
Um,
just, not just. I mean, there's other stuff involved. I mean, what goes on in Canaan is very, very, very complex. There's a lot of stuff going on there that covers a pretty wide span of years and commands and so forth. I think
right,
the
but
conquest. I think the conquest is a hagiographic, hyperbolic account of a justified expulsion uh, of evil Canaanites from the land. I wrote this down so I didn't forget. The story
yeah,
is related via unnerving depictions of God as a warrior by ancient warlike people. With the advent of the incarnation in Jesus, the violent portraits of God are cast in a different light. The future of the people of God are no longer tied to the earth. So I think there's difference. I think there's like a lot to that. So we would have to break down every single detail on that if we really wanted a full view of that, which I
Well,
don't think we're. I
I
think it's the point
understood
of the
all
show.
of the words, but I don't understand them together. So help me make sense of it. Where was the expulsion of Canaan and the killing that God told his people to do? Was that justified or not?
Well, according to God, if they are at the point where they're so depraved that He executes judgment on them, absolutely, it's justified.
Okay, and that then you would say it wasn't war at all. It was
It was a conquest. You
okay. Why
know,
is
they
conquest okay when
drove.
God does it, and it's
Well,
not okay when the Spaniards do it?
because the Spaniards weren't ordered by God.
Okay, then
So
that's what I mean.
yeah,
It sounds like
I
that's
mean,
what we call
God,
special
well,
pleading, right?
it's not,
That's a
well,
special
absolutely not.
exemption.
God is the one that is the judge over humanity. So, according to the Christian worldview, God does judge, whether He judges you today or He
Okay,
judges you
well,
tomorrow.
I don't actually believe in your God,
Of course,
and I don't
that's
live in the
fine.
Christian worldview, and
That's
so I
fine.
don't see the difference between the Hebrews uh, taking out judgment and the Spaniards taking out judgment. I don't see the difference between one conquistador and another. And the
Okay.
only difference that you can give me is that, well, with the Hebrews, God told them to, and with the Spaniards,
And He
God didn't
actually
tell them
led
to.
them, and He actually led them. Yeah, He actually went out before them. As a matter of fact, I think it's the people that stayed behind that they went to war with. You know, I mean, a lot of people had already abandoned that area. I mean, you just
Sure.
see that through history. I mean, God told them they got plenty of warning to leave. The people that wanted to
Well,
leave,
yeah,
and
the
there's
warning
tons
to
of
leave. This was
tons. This
still
is yeah, but you got to realize, like, if stuff gets so evil, I mean, we had to invade Germany at some point. I mean, Hitler was a maniac.
right,
Okay,
and
so
so that
at
was
some
just right.
point, absolutely, it was
Was
just.
that God carrying out justice, or was that us?
That was us, I think.
And you think
And I
that was
think I
okay?
don't know. I don't know if that.
Then
Yeah, I absolutely think
I don't know the
invading,
difference between what you think a just war is and what isn't. Because
because I
if
think
it's
God was with. I think God actually was with them.
okay,
In
so
that
as
way.
long as you think God is with
No,
a
not think.
conquering
I think
force,
He was actually there. Like, if
well,
God showed up and He
but
was
I
actually
don't.
there,
So it is a
and that's
matter of think. You
fine.
can't prove it.
Yeah.
So
Well,
as
yeah,
long as
but you see, I'm not trying to prove it to you, David.
right,
I'm
so I'm
trying to
just trying
tell
to
you the justification of
and I'm
why
trying to
I think
understand.
it's
I'm
true.
trying to understand your justification. As long as you think God is with the army, then it's a just war. Is
If
that
God is
correct?
actually with the army, leading the army, absolutely, it's a just war. Obviously,
Okay. Well, I
yeah.
think
If
that
sin is real, if sin is real and stuff like that, and evil is a real thing, and He decides, hey, look, I'm all good, and this is time for this stuff to be judged and stopped, then yeah. And the problem is like, people often, cry about God not doing nothing, God not stepping in to stop this evil. And then yet when He does step in and stop the evil, they complain about that too. So it's like a lose-lose for the Christian anytime. So
all right. So I'm gonna leave that. That was question one. That was supposed to be the easiest. Question two is very similar, so we can probably skirt past it pretty quickly. I think that we both made our points, and we'll let the audience decide. Question two is when in Ecclesiastes 3:3, when uh, the poet says there's a time to kill, what is being permitted there? So the first question was what is being forbidden when it says thou shalt not kill, and now I want to know what's being permitted when it says it's okay to kill.
yeah, I have no idea on that. I have no idea what the poet was getting at there. I have no idea what his intent was. I don't think it was something that it's obviously poetry, so I I don't know if he's saying, hey, there's a time where there's going to be fighting and war and so forth, or there's a time you're going to have to defend yourself. So I just don't know what he was getting at. So
It would have been really, really helpful if in either one of these spots, the ones who wrote this down actually uh, appended what they were talking about. Because
I
even
don't.
then, there were all kinds of nuances and meanings and ideas
Yeah.
about killing.
Well,
So
I
thou
don't
should not
take.
kill should have included what he was talking about, and a time to kill should have included what he was talking about. Because
Yeah,
frankly, I don't know.
yeah, but Dave. There's a lot of nuances and crazy things when poetry. I'm not going to stop and explain to you what I mean when I write a poem. That kind of ruins the whole thing. I don't think that's the intent of the poem. So, but
Yeah.
I hear what you're saying and I sympathize. Don't get me wrong. I mean, yeah, I'd like some clear direction on that specific verse, but I don't think it would be conducive to mess up the poem that way to
Okay.
explain
Well,
it.
okay. So my third question is kind of moot then, because it's already been expressed, but it's how can we tell the difference when it's time to kill and when it's not time to kill? What killing we can do and what killing we can't do. I mean, if we're trying, by the way, I don't really care what the Bible has to say about anything. My life is not ruled by um, mud brick makers and their opinions on life. But that
Ad
said,
hominem. That's kind of an
it
ad hominem. I'm not going to let you be
it
anti-Semitic that way,
it
David. You're talking about ancient Jews as mud builders. Come on, man. I'm not going to let that stand on the show.
you have the David Johnson polemic seal of approval. So I will simply let you have that. But
Good.
point still stands. I have no idea, even looking at their literature, how to tell the difference between when it's a time to kill and when you can't kill. Um, there's nothing in the text, and I've read all of the text that helps me distinguish the difference. And I think that this is one of the challenges with the Christian who wants to point to the Bible for their authority on killing and not killing, is that the Bible is all over the map on that. And so I can distill it down to thou should not kill. Oh, but there's a time to kill, and that's a oversimplification. But when you unravel it, it still doesn't get any less confusing. It gets more confusing. And so,
I don't think so, but that's just
you,
me. I mean, I think it's kind of clear.
well, the fact that many Christians disagree with you strongly about your ideas on killing tell me that it's not very clear cut.
Well,
You don't need me to disagree with you.
either that, or one of us just got it wrong, or a bunch of them got it wrong, or
Sure,
whatever. I
but if
mean,
everyone's getting it wrong, then it can't be that clear.
it can be. It can
Really?
be. I mean, just
Then the people
because,
getting it
just
wrong, are they just
look,
stupid?
look, you could read things wrong. I'm not going to say they're stupid. I mean, there could be an issue that where someone's reading something, they're not reading it in context, they're not reading it correctly, or they are reading it correctly, and they're what they want to believe about the text happens. I mean, there's all sorts of reasons. I think you have to take each one as it comes and deal with each person's view
Do
as it
you
comes.
think you're right about your views on killing?
I think I am. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
and so you're being honest
I'm
to
just
the
being honest.
text.
Yeah. I'm trying to
Yeah,
be
and
honest.
and and you think that
What if
people
I
who
got
are
it wrong
wrong are
though?
what, not being honest?
And what if I got it wrong though? I mean, I still leave that open to. No, I think they are, and
Okay,
there's nothing
so
about
then
them
it's
not
not
being.
clear.
But it
That's
could. I mean, but what do you want as clear? I mean, do you want like a handwritten statement said, okay, this is what it should be, and give you an exact
okay. When
verification.
people are reading the Bible devotionally and prayerfully, and they are filled with the Spirit, and the Spirit is helping them understand what they're reading, and God knows their hearts, and He wants to give them understanding, and they come away with wildly different opinions.
Well,
That's
here's the thing,
unclear. So
David.
what I would
How
want
wide
is
is
for
this?
people of faith
Yeah.
to have some agreement on
Yeah.
what this means.
But how far is that divide? I don't know. I've only met Titus and know the Anabaptists that have a sticking point here.
Oh
Every other
no.
Protestant religion that I know, and I think the majority sees it this way. I don't think I'm the only one out there. I think there's
Well,
several
no.
people that see it, and maybe they're the ones that did get it wrong, or maybe we're the
No.
ones that got it wrong and they got it right.
Yeah.
I think it's
You
clear enough.
you
But
should maybe visit some more churches.
oh,
You
I've
don't
been
you
to a
don't
lot, but there
then
are
if you
pacifists out
think that
there.
everybody in those churches agreed with the stated views you have on killing, you haven't talked to a lot of people,
Well, I'm just
because
saying a
that's just not
majority.
true.
I think the majority
No, not the
holds to a just
majority.
war.
No. Well, just war. Maybe on that subject, and I would have to
Just in
look to.
self
I'd have to look
defense.
to see what that subject is. But
Yeah.
on the general subject of killing, no way. For instance, just on the question of abortion, this is not the abortion show. That's next week. But just on the subject of abortion, you have a pretty close split uh, on what Christians think about abortion, whether it is okay or whether it's a sin. And I think as of now, the split is that more Christians are in favor of abortion than not.
I don't know
It
about that, man. I would
well,
have to see
okay.
your data.
When's the last time you looked up data on that? Because it
I
hasn't been
looked
that
at
long for me.
probably I want to say probably around 2008, not 18, probably about 2017, probably.
Okay, well, Andrew's in the chat here, and he's going to be moderating next week's discussion. So, Andrew, make a note.
We'll have to pull
Maybe
some
you can,
data here. We'll have to pull some data so
yeah,
we can actually hash that out. But
yeah.
yeah, I think we beat this horse. I don't think we're going to get any further because I don't think we have any evidence. Either of us have any evidence right now to present on
Well,
that.
I could, but if you see, it doesn't even matter if it was, just slightly percentage more Christians against abortion. It's very close to the middle, one way or the
Yeah,
other.
and then you have to break down.
It may even be a margin of error. But the point that I'm making is it shouldn't be close. And the fact that it is means that you are wrong about there being this mass agreement on the subject of killing. The same thing is
That's
true
if
with
I am wrong, and I don't know if I am.
euthanasia. All of these issues are hotly disputed in the Christian
And
world.
bro, I don't even think no matter how clear you get, some people are and groups of people are always going to see things the way they want to see them.
We're not
And
just talking about some handful of
we
people
see
off to
that
the
with the
side.
Constitution. We see that with the Constitution. We see that with our Supreme Court justices that say, "Oh, this is what the Constitution means." Oh no, this is what the Constitution means. I mean, do we need clarity there too? Then everything needs clarity then. And how much clarity are we going to get? How much is going to be reasonable for us to make a reasonable decision on what certain things that we read mean? I
Yeah, well,
think
your Constitution analogy is just wrong because we do have a Supreme Court, whether you like the Supreme Court or not, who can make judgments on constitutionality. That's
yeah,
their job.
and they all have a different view of the
Yeah,
Constitution
but
and what it
that the
means.
we have a mechanism for solving those issues.
Not really,
There is no
because another
mechanism.
judge can come and turn it around and say, "Oh no, this is what it meant." So
Well,
I mean,
there's a very difficult process to overturn a
and the
Supreme
reason
Court decision.
it's so unclear that we have three branches of power because we don't want one
But
person to rule absolutely.
we have the branches. Hear me out, if you please.
Yeah. Okay.
We
Sorry.
have those branches so that there can be a solution, there can be an answer to those debates. Now, whether you like the answer or not, there's a policy in place to resolve them. There is no such setup for figuring out biblical disputes among Christians. And so when it comes to the matters that we're going to be talking about over the next few weeks about killing, you can't point to what the Christians say because the Christians say they're on both sides at about equal portions on a bunch of these issues, which you will see. And so there is no Supreme Court of the Christians to say, no, actually, this is the right policy. Now, if you're Catholic, the Pope, he can do it, but I don't think you're Catholic.
Sorry, David, I was writing something down. I don't. I think you got the analogy wrong there that you were trying to use with the Constitution because just because someone overrides and there's a solution to make new things, it's still not solving the problem of what it actually meant and how it was supposed to be carried out and how the framers
Right, but we do
wanted to carry it
have
out.
what
And
you
the
would
thing
call a
is,
final court of
and the
arbitration.
thing is, we have the Christians have orthodoxy, and we have our own councils that have decided things like this. Now, when it comes to your idea that saying, "Hey, every Christian's divided," I don't think that divide is as big as you say it is. So we'll have to look it up. We'll have to get different data. We'll have to break down that data and see why they think this way, and see what the actual statistic ask them to see where they got their answers. So, I mean, these things have to be taken all by case basis. And this is all I'm asking is take it by case by case basis,
Okay,
see
well,
what somebody
what
actually has.
statistics would you accept? Pew Research, is that good for you?
I would accept
They're a
all the
secular
research
group.
and break it down. I would break all of them down. I would love to
Okay,
break all of them down.
are you okay
By
with the Barna
Barna,
group?
I'm okay
Barna's
with
a
the Barna.
Christian group.
I'm
You're
okay
okay with
with
Barna?
Barna. I'm
Okay.
okay with Pew. I'm okay with bro. I'm not. I don't discriminate when it comes to data. I like to break all of it down. So if
Okay,
someone were
well,
to present to me something,
we have a lot of problem in the on the discussion board, skepticsandseekers.squarespace.com. Whenever an atheist puts out something that's statistical from one, two, or three sources, the Christian comes back and says, "I don't agree with those statistics." And so I just want to see if we can head some of that off now by figuring out, well, which groups do you respect?
well, yeah, I respect I respect a lot of those groups. What disqualifies a group from that thing is how they came about the statistic. Pew could have something totally wrong, because people aren't uh, immune to error.
Okay, but
So
you're not going
Barna
to
could
just
get something.
automatically
Oh
discount it just
no.
because it's
Oh
Pew.
no,
Okay, all right, that's
absolutely.
good. That's
And
fine.
if there's anybody that does it, they're not being intellectually honest, I don't think. So
I kind of agree. So, guys in the chat room, you'll have your turn at Mike. You've got a little bit of homework to do. Um, so let me move down my list of initial questions here, um, to see where some more of the disagreement is, because we're going to be coming upon some of the problems that we're going to get to, and I want to I won't solve them today, but I at least want to point them out, so that flag them for future conversations. Um, the prohibition to never shed innocent blood. I think that's one of the things that God hates: hands that shed innocent blood. You would agree with that, yes?
yeah.
Okay. So, how should I understand certain things? I kind of feel like I know how you're going to answer this, but I just need to put it out there for the record. Okay. Um, how do you feel about situations in the Bible, such as the 10th plague, where all of the firstborn of Egypt were indiscriminately killed? Some of those most certainly innocent children.
Well, there's a few answers I think theists give on that. I think one of them is obviously judgment is taken out, and not only that, but uh none of us are I mean, even Jesus says this, and none of us are guaranteed tomorrow. God is the giver and taker of life, my friend. So we're not to shed innocent blood. God can take and give life, if, and do any way he chooses. He can just come down and take someone's life, or any time he chooses. So as far as matters of life and death, and God having control over that, since he's the giver anyway, I, I don't really have an issue on that end.
Okay, so I do have some follow up there, but I just want to be sure, because this sounds like another one of those special pleading moments to
Not if
me.
God,
And
not if God is real.
even if God is real, I'm just assuming that for your answer here. It sounds like special pleading, because you're saying, well, we can't shed innocent blood, but God can shed as much innocent blood as He wants to.
Well, yeah, he's God.
So
He's
So
not
what is
shedding
about
innocent blood.
God?
He's taking somebody
Is it
from
innocent
location
blood
to
or not?
another.
Wait a minute. Whoa.
He's taking
He didn't
somebody.
just gently lift the innocent people away from there so that they didn't have to face the violence. He sent a stupid angel of death who could only read bloody signpost to take his sword or whatever it was and
Whoa,
slay.
whoa, whoa, whoa! Where do you get slay and all that stuff? How do you know how the angel conducted the taking of the firstborn?
Well, what do you think
Where
he
does that
did? You
say
think he
it?
talked him to death?
He could have.
I don't. Okay.
It doesn't say. I don't know.
If the conversation was like this, that would be cruel and unusual
Well,
punishment
like he
too.
could just he could just
So,
he could just have taken their souls to heaven, man. I don't know how it worked. And you got to remember, all those firstborn, you're talking about firstborn men, women, and children. So he could have taken them any way that he did. It just doesn't say. We don't know. From what I always remember,
but these people were killed, were they not? They were alive. The angel came through, and they were dead.
They were taken from this realm of life to the next. Absolutely.
Okay, wait a minute. Were they killed or not? Let's not.
Well, what do you mean by
pussyfoot
killed
around
at this
that.
point?
What do you-
If God takes life every day, right?
What do you mean
So
by
I mean,
killed?
you've got So I'm wondering here is like,
If
God
I
takes
went
life every
in and
day.
if I went
know?
in and killed all the firstborn of a village,
Okay.
would I be guilty of killing?
Yes, you would be a monster.
Would I be guilty of taking innocent blood?
Yes, you could be.
Okay, but
Depending on
if God does it, then it's neither killing nor
if
taking
God
of innocent
comes
blood.
down, if God comes down and takes people away and takes their life, he has that right. He's God. He's in a whole different category than we are. We're just
okay, but
vassals made in his image. He
that
can
is
resurrect
exactly
life. He
special
has the
pleading.
power over life. He has the power over life. And you call it special pleading all he wants. He's in a different category because he is God.
Why?
He is
Wait
the
a minute.
giver
So-
and taker of life.
Wait a
He
minute.
gives it, he takes it.
What?
It's his, it's in his hands. We are his in the end.
So it is
So I don't know
impossible
what
for
you're
God
having-
to. It is impossible for God to murder because he can just slay anybody he wants to whenever he wants to because he's God. Is that what I'm hearing?
I think it would be unjust for God if he took someone's life and annihilated them and they were absolutely innocent of any crime.
Okay, so what
obliterated.
crime do you believe
I think that would
that
be
the
the best.
smallest children in Egypt were guilty of?
What were they guilty of? I have no idea. I wasn't in their hearts.
What
or
could
their
they
minds.
possibly
All I
have
know
been
is
guilty?
that all I know. Hey! All I know is that from what I read in the entire Old Testament, if there were just 10 righteous people in Egypt, then God would have spared them.
Okay,
If they would have repented and turned, they would have been spared.
the babies had nothing to repent of. Why were they killed?
I don't see where it says any baby at the time was there. I don't know exactly how this
Really?
looked.
Because we're talking every firstborn.
Yeah. So if
So
they
you
were
think
already
that only
alive-
applied to people who were old enough to commit sins?
Well, I mean, you also got to look at it.
I mean, I'm just trying to figure out your head canon here
absolutely,
because
absolutely, it would apply to people of an age of some sort of accountability.
okay, so you're saying that the
so
babies in Egypt would not have been killed even if they were
weren't
firstborn?
I don't know. I don't have a tally of how many Egyptians died.
Because
and how they
it's
died.
funny how you don't know this, but everybody knows what the story means when it says all of the firstborn to be killed.
And it was a
But-
judgment.
but-
It was a corporate judgment on it. Okay, I'll go the other route. Okay, let's say he did take their lives. He did take all the babies' lives too. Wouldn't they be ushered into heaven at that point?
By some stories, although by Chris
Mhm.
Date, who is a
would-
darn sight smarter than both you and me, thinks not.
Well, he believes in soul sleep, I think, but I'm not sure if he's changed that or not.
Also, it's not Brian Blaze. Andrew, open your mic long enough to tell me the person I'm thinking of. Dave, no, you can close it. I got it. Dave Pegg. Dave Pegg had him on earlier this season. He is a Christian minister. He teaches in the public schools in Britain, and he also
I know Pegg.
believes
Yeah,
that
we-
children can go to hell. He's got some fairly harsh views. These are nice people. These are smart people.
Yeah, I mean,
they
they
disagree
come
with
from a-
you.
Absolutely, they come from a different view on predestination and so forth. And
I'm not
either-
entirely sure why I should listen to your
either-
opinion.
Why are you listening to theirs then?
Well, they look. I'm
Why don't you
simply
listen
trying to
both of
say
why don't you listen to both of our opinions? Be open-minded and say, okay.
Well, I'm doing my
me
best, but I
weigh-
have
let me
no
weigh
way of
this.
determining who's right between you and them.
Well, you're not going to get if you're looking for someone to answer all your questions in life. I just don't know where you're going to look because
I'd love to find someone who could answer any of them at this point. But sure, what we have
Just because we
is-
disagree doesn't mean we're wrong.
what
either.
we have is God taking innocent blood and you ultimately saying God can take any innocent blood that
Can
he wants
take
to because
any.
he's his. Why is
Take
it
life.
okay for God to kill?
Why is it okay for God to take life?
To
Why is it
kill.
okay?
Just say kill. Because that's
It's
what it
okay
is.
if it's okay for God to kill. He's taken people from one plane of existence to another. It's his priority. It's his
Is it
right. He
killing or
is the
not?
power of life
Wait a
and
minute.
death.
Wait a minute. Is it killing? Because this is one of those places where I was doing some issue spotting, and I thought there might be some prevarication here. And here we go. Is God killing or not?
Well, that's why I said, I mean, he's taking them from this world to the next. So
Is
they're
that
alive in
killing?
some way, shape, or form.
Is
Are they alive in
that
some way, shape, or form?
is that
So
killing? Is God
what
does God
do
kill?
you mean by kill? Is it a cessation of existence or not?
So we're gonna get there. So sure, this is this is the kind of insanity I'm talking about. You 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 think that we're talking about the same thing, and we're really not when it gets right down to it. What I'm getting from you though is that the idea of killing, bad for humans, good for God. Can we judge any of God's killings, even though it seems to go against all of the moral rules he gave about killing? Well, no, because he's God and he can do whatever the hell he wants, because he's God. And when God does it, heck, we shouldn't even call it killing, because it's just God transitioning a person from one state to another. So if I were to kill somebody, wouldn't I just be transitioning them from one state to another?
Your your prohibition is because life is not yours to take
But it
on
doesn't
this
matter.
plane or the
I'm
next
not
plane.
really taking anything. I'm just transitioning a person from one state to another.
Yeah, but you're not allowed because God has given you the duty not to.
But would you? But it's not killing though, is it? If I'm just transitioning them from one state to another.
Well, again, you're not allowed to do that. So it would be killing um on your behalf
So it's killing for me only because I'm not allowed to. But when God does it,
because
it's not killing.
you're not allowed to take somebody's life here. You've been commanded not to.
Okay. Let's
But also what I was gonna bring up here too that I just left my mind uh is yeah, go ahead. Move on to the next because I lost my train of thought.
Okay, I'll just jump down to the end of my list here. We haven't actually got into the blog post yet. I'm going to reserve a little bit of time for that. We're getting down to it. I know you've got a hard stop, which is why I'm pushing through some of this. So, who owns my life? Now, it seems to me that you have a worldview that says God is not just the giver and taker of life; He's the one who actually owns the life, and that my life really isn't mine, and your life really isn't yours. It all belongs to God. Is that correct? Or am I misreading you?
Well, yeah, I think ultimately, yes. There's obviously things that he bestows on us, like the freedom of the will and so forth. I mean, at least that's from my opinion.
Okay, but
But as far
now
as
I'm
having like
confused.
complete autonomy, uh,
Well,
as
just
far as
ownership.
over our
I
own
tend to think that
souls,
I
at
own
least,
myself. I think that, self ownership is important. Self possession, if you will. I am my own possession. Uh, you don't believe in self possession, though, if I'm hearing you right. You believe that life belongs to God and it's God's possession. Is that correct?
I think life is God's possession. Yes.
Okay, so the life I am living now actually belongs to God and not me.
I think, yeah, I think the life you're living now is your purpose is to live for God, and because you're
No, no,
not,
that's
you're
different.
living out of that.
I don't mean who I'm living for. I just mean the owner of my life. Who gets to um say whether I must live another day or whether I can die today. Who gets to say that? Because that would be a matter of ownership. Um,
I think God is the one that ultimately determines when you live and die. Yes, that's his priority.
I see. But he won't stop us from taking life either.
Not always, I don't think.
Do you
Yeah,
think he
I think
does
he can
sometimes?
intervene. Yeah, I think he can intervene. I believe in miracles and so forth and providence.
So this confuses me a little. Um, if God steps in to stop some lives from being taken because those lives belong to him, why doesn't he stop all humans from taking lives? Because that's God's action.
Um,
So why would he?
for the
Why would
simple
he?
fact, for the simple fact is that he says, you know, uh, every day is a mercy. So, um, yeah, I think every day is a mercy. We're not guaranteed another day. The fact that we get another day is mercy.
Okay.
You get this one now.
Okay. Yeah. I'm. So I'm trying to wrap my mind around the what I think your idea is. I'm trying not to strawman your idea. Um,
Sorry, your guys in the chat uh are trying to debate me as well, so it's kind of hard to keep up right now. So
that's okay.
I'm gonna
I'm
close
glad
the
they're
chat.
I'm glad they're there to give you an excuse because
It's
you
not
could
an
use one.
excuse.
Um,
I
that's
think you could
okay.
use one. I don't think you're getting the whole concept of sin and evil at that point.
Well,
So
but I don't get the concept of God
God,
owns my life. So if I
I'm
don't
sorry
believe
you
in a
don't.
God,
That's fine.
how would
You
I
don't have to believe in him if it is true. If it's not true, then you're right all day, David. Like I said, you're right
okay.
all day. In my opening, I said you're right. If I'm wrong, you are right. 100%. Your life is your own. There is no intrinsic value. That's it. You're right. 100%.
Okay.
If I'm wrong,
So
you're right.
so let's just look at that then very briefly. It's a subject that'll come up a lot, which is intrinsic value of life. So you mentioned this in your opening statement. I want to let most of that stand. And if you don't mind, send me a copy of it or put it on the board and let people have it so that they can read it alongside my blog post. So let's discuss just a moment about the intrinsicness of the value of life. What gives life intrinsic value to you?
God
How do you
place
understand that?
God placing his image on us.
Okay, so do other animals besides humans have intrinsic value?
Not in the same way.
Well, do
I
they
think
have
that
any?
I'm not 100% sure. I don't know where I stand on the whole animals have intrinsic value type thing. I think to a degree, in my opinion, to a degree, they have worth and value because they are living creatures that God made. So I think we have to treat them good and love them and eat them when we have to. It's like, but no. I do think that there is some value there to animals, but I
Okay,
haven't come down on a solid side on that yet.
then
So
so this is why it's important. When I ask what gives humans value, you said because God placed His image on us, or
yeah,
some derivation of that.
yes,
Um, and when I ask you if humans had value, you had to say you're not sure because you
humans.
would. I mean, I'm sorry, animals, other
Oh,
animals,
animals. Yeah,
because God in your mind has not placed His image on them. Is that correct?
for the most part, yes.
And so, if it's not for God placing His image on us, would we have any more valuable than other animals, in your opinion?
No,
It would be the same. So you could
it would
then
be the same.
understand why a person who does not believe in God would also not believe that there is a difference between the intrinsic value of humans and, say, capuchin monkeys.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, I could see why you would say that. Yeah.
Yeah, and you would agree with that, right? If
Yeah.
there's if it's not for God placing his image on us,
Hmm.
we wouldn't actually have this intrinsic value that you think we do now.
Correct.
That's very interesting. Um, that leaves a lot of doors open that I think I'll just let dangle there for the other participants in the discussion to listen to. But I do find it kind of interesting. So what is God's image exactly?
Oh
Um,
man, bro.
well, I'm trying to
don't have a
pinpoint this
I don't
value.
have a list of the Imago Dei on me.
Okay, so is it that
There's a lot.
hard? I
I
mean,
think
it's
no,
because
I
you
just think
seem to
there's a
be
lot to it. I don't want to misspeak. I think part of it is our rationality, our ability to rationalize the way we do, to understand all and beauty, to communicate with God. So I don't know.
okay. So I think it deserves at least. It's a fair question because you're saying that the reason I'm wrong and the reason my position is so scary is because I don't see humans as having intrinsic value. And you're saying the reason humans have intrinsic value is because of your imago Dei. So when I ask, well, what is the imago Dei? You demur. and
Well, like I said, I think that humans have it because they've been placed with that image of God on them. I don't think
and
there's
you're
a
right,
big
but
problem with that.
we've got to then be able to unpack what on earth that is you think is a difference. So uh,
Well, I've given you three
okay,
three
well,
examples. I don't
but
have the full list.
those examples don't really help, and here's why. I'll just
I'm
put it in the
sorry.
form of a
I'm
question.
sorry.
What do you think humans can do that that no other animal can do?
I don't think they can rationalize like we can.
You don't
I
think
don't
that
think
there
they
is
can.
any other animal
I've never
that
seen
can.
any other animal art be an architect and build construction sites and
You'd ever seen a
pyramids
bird
and
nest?
never seen. Of course, I've seen a bird's nest.
Oh,
Uh,
good.
yeah, they're not near
So
as intricate as like the Gothic cathedral.
okay, look, a
Yeah,
bird's nest may not be as intricate as a Gothic cathedral, but I couldn't make a bird's nest.
why not?
So I can't make a Gothic
Well,
cathedral,
learn
but
how.
I also can't
You
make a
have the
bird's
ability to learn
nest.
how, just but the bird doesn't have the ability to
Well, I'm just
learn
saying
how to make.
humans,
No, no, no,
not
no, no.
all
Let me
humans
finish
can
this
build
point.
cathedrals.
Or
Furthermore, not all humans can
let's
learn to build
but we have the
cathedrals.
capacity. We have the capacity to do so.
Not
The
all
bird does
humans,
not. Not the bird does not have that capacity.
but they have the capacity to build some pretty elaborate nests. And once again, they can build
Okay,
nests that I don't know how to build.
every nest I have seen is about the same thing. It just might vary in size. So I don't know what you're trying to get. I think that's a bad argument. You probably should just move on because it's a bad argument. And I
Well,
just don't.
well, if
To say
you're
that the
saying that somehow
animals can't do it,
architecture is somehow the thing that separates
it
that gives us
there's
imago Dei, and I'm not
there's
seeing
this
that.
ration that, like I said, there's a whole rationality, our ability
Well,
to be in relation
well, wait, hang on.
with
How
God,
sophisticated does the architecture have to be so that you can say, "Oh, that person has the
to
imago
be able
Dei"?
to reason with moral intuition and so forth.
So, I mean, well, so when our ancestors lived in mud huts, you took offense to that earlier. When our
I was
ancestors,
joking with you.
I understand and I appreciate it, but when they lived in mud huts, was that a sign of the imago Dei? Because you seem to
Well,
be you're saying that, well, we got fancy architecture today, so that means God. And
yeah,
I'm not seeing that.
those guys that lived in those mud huts built pyramids, man. I mean, that's pretty wild. Those pyramids are freaking
The very
amazing.
first humans didn't build pyramids, but yeah, if, at some point we
Well,
figured out how.
according to your, well, I would agree with you. I don't think the first humans built pyramids either. I think they lived in
Thank
a
you, but
garden.
they were
I
still
think they lived in
human.
a garden. So, yeah, and they
Okay,
communicated with God.
but they still had some imago. So tell me again something that you think the animals can't do that we can that represents this imago Dei
I
because
did.
I am
I
not
said
seeing
I
it.
think they have the ability to appreciate beauty. I don't.
Do you believe that no animals have the
Have the
ability
ability to
to
appreciate
have
beauty.
aesthetic appreciation?
Yeah, I don't. I don't think they
Okay,
can comprehend it with with the front of their equal or their
I'll leave
brains
that
there.
to the experts
Yeah.
and
I mean,
the
you'd have to.
people in the
There's obviously
commenters too.
human
I disagree with
exceptional.
that.
I definitely believe in human exceptionalism. So I do believe that humans are pretty exceptional when it comes to things like that that no other animal has been able to display. So the fact that we create machines that drive down roads at
Okay, but
varying speeds, I mean, no other animal can do that. They
what
don't have the
why
capacity to
so
do
I
that.
believe in human
So there's
exceptionalism too, and that there are things that
then why are
we
you arguing with me?
but I believe it in a
You're
very
arguing for
different
the
way than
sake of
you.
arguing. No.
Hear me out so that you can not fall into any traps that are out there. Um, Human exceptionalism simply being that there are things that we can do that maybe some other animal who, for instance, doesn't have opposable thumbs can't do. There are some things that animals with a large frontal cortex can do that animals with a smaller frontal cortex can't do. So there are some things that dogs can do that cats can't do. There's some things that cats can do that dogs can't do. Every animal species has some form of exceptionalism. If it didn't, it probably wouldn't be a separate species. So that said, I am not getting from you what specific human skill you think sets us apart that represents, so that's God's image. And why would you say that's God's image? I could easily say a cat's ability to climb a tree as fast and as easily as they can do is God's image, because humans can't do that. We can't do it to save our lives. We're never going to be able to do it as well as your most humble house cat. So why can't I say that is a sign of the Imago Dei? And how is your saying, well, these bit of exceptions, this is Imago Dei? How do you justify that?
Well, I think that my worldview speaks to that. I believe in the accuracy and the reliability of the Bible, and I believe that the Bible separates us in that way. I believe the story of the Bible. So my worldview and my starting point is totally different than yours. So of course you can look at that and say, oh well, a cat is more exceptional because it can scale a tree better than a dog. But okay, I don't know what else you want me to answer. I
Well,
believe
but you
what
just said that humans are more exceptional than birds because we could build fancy
we could build
architecture and they
our
can only build
architecture,
dumb
the way we
nests.
rationalize. I said through our moral intuition, the fact that we're moral agents and they're not.
Animals
Um,
have moral agency. You can see it in their behavior.
I don't agree with you, but that's okay. We'd have to get
Okay,
the
so
professionals on
I'm
that.
once again I'm trying to understand.
I believe animals are amoral, so I would have to. We would have to look at some studies on that as well. Then.
All right, crew, that's more of your homework. So far, I'm not hearing a Christian view of life that is sensible to me. Let's close. Let's close here. I know that you said 2:30,
Yeah, I
and
gotta get
we're getting there
ready.
now. So let's close with this. We'll get into a
A
little
word
bit
of
of the
prayer.
plot.
Let's go. Come on.
Not this time. We will. Such violence. We will get into a
Time
little
to
bit of the
kill, David.
plot coast this way. Um, I had a. Oh yeah, life and death. So we've touched on some of this a little bit, but I want to just um, do a little bit more of this because this is another one of these issues that I spot. When does life begin for you? And I don't even mean in an abortion argument kind of way. I mean, you as a Christian, do you think that souls are alive before they are born?
I believe there's a soul as soon as conception happens. So when that egg
Okay.
drops, and that's what I consider conception. That's what most embryologists do as well. So
Okay. So you don't think that the souls pre-exist uh,
in some symbiote pond in on what's it on Trill.
yeah, well, I mean,
No,
however it works.
yeah,
I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. I just
I know
want to
you are.
understand where you are.
Yeah, that's where I'm at.
Okay, so I will not call a name so that I am not accused of misrepresenting a point of view. But let me just say, um, one of my favorite Christians would disagree with you strongly and would say that souls do pre-exist.
Yeah, I would like to
Um,
find out where they get that from. Maybe I got it wrong. Or maybe he got it wrong. Or she.
right. But Christians who are listening, skepticsandseekers.squarespace.com, do souls pre-exist human sexuality and the biological process? That's the question, yes or no. I really want to hear your answer on that. I can tell you that during most of my church career, souls pre-existed. That was the prevailing thought, that souls pre-existed. Andrew, you're going to be talking about this a little bit next week. If you're still there, turn on your mic for a moment, because I would love to get a small preview from you on this.
Okay, what was the question?
Do souls pre-exist the sexual act and the biology?
Not as far as I can tell.
Right, no, but from a Christian perspective.
Oh,
when you were a Christian, what did you think?
Originally, I thought they did, but I realized later on that if they did, it put God in a really untenable position. So I changed my mind. And that position is this: if a soul pre-existed, right, prior to conception, they're in some state of salvation. They're presumably in heaven with God, or at least in some waiting place, right? Then what you have God implicit in every soul that ends up in hell is taking them out of a state of pre-existence, probably in bliss, at least, even if they're not in heaven, if they're just hanging out in the soul machine together, they're not in torture. And so if God did have pre-existent souls prior to conception, for every one of those souls that ended up in hell, God was implicit in the act of their arrival.
Okay, you can mute your mic again. A little preview from next week. I know that I will hear more about that. Brian, you're there. You don't have to if you want to. Just say no thanks in the chat if you will. But I know that you were a Christian as well. When you were a Christian, I'm just looking for a yes or no. Did you think that souls pre-existed the biological act?
Yes, I would have affirmed that when I was a Christian.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That was. I won't say that I never met anyone who thought otherwise, but it would definitely have been a minority view, David. So I am curious now about the audience, what they think. So here's the problem with souls pre-existing, with life pre-existing before biology. If life pre-exists before biology, then we're not talking about the same thing when we're talking about life at all. We're talking about something completely different. So I cannot separate the idea of life from the biological act. And when I have talked to Christians about this in the past, and I assure you I have, what they would do is point me to Bible passages like the following. Look, I was guilty of sin from birth, sinner the moment my mother conceived me. Now, for David, he points to conception, but he says he was a sinner from that moment. So in order to be a sinner at that moment, you have to have some kind of something more than just being alive in order to be considered a sinner. And then Jeremiah, he says this: before I formed you in your mother's womb, this is God speaking, before I formed you in your mother's womb, I chose you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you to be a prophet to the nations. This is before Jeremiah was born. He was chosen and appointed. And so Christians use these two passages, especially when they're defending something like abortion. This is a very common Christian argument. So, Russell, you're telling me that you are not familiar with this?
No, I've never seen anybody use it in that way. I don't think that's what the text is saying at all, and especially after studying those type of texts, I pretty much I've kept that conclusion, because I think the evidence is best that fits best that way. I don't think that there's any warrant for somebody saying that that implies the existence of the skull. I would think that would be more eisegesis than exegesis, if you ask me.
Okay, well, go onto YouTube and click on any
Oh, I
video where
will.
Christians
That's interesting.
talking.
I want to see. I
Yeah,
would love to see where they get that
yeah.
justification.
I won't even put anything in the just randomly click. You'll run into it. But that is the common line
Mhm.
for Christians. And so the last question on that front. So there's going to be some commonality with you throughout this on what life is, perhaps, possibly. Although when you say it comes from God and belongs to God, I think that we still have some disconnect on what we mean by life. But what is death for you? So that's my last question in this. So a common Christian argument, so you at least see where the weeds are before you step in. It would be a biblical passage that I didn't bother marking out, but it talks about the soul being separated from the body, and this being death. And what Christians tend to be talking about when they talk about death, in my experience anyway, especially when they're talking about it theologically, is, as you try to do earlier in the show, and say, well, it's not really death, it's just a transition from one life state to another. So do you believe that there is ever a point where conscious humans stop being conscious humans?
Stop existing? No. I don't. I'm not sure what the annihilate. Like I told you, I was still kind of seeking that, and I haven't really dived too much into the
Right.
whole
Well, you're going too far, though, if
annihilationism.
you're thinking about annihilation. I'm just thinking about from this life to whatever you think the next one is.
No, I think humans transition from one plane of existence to another.
Okay. So this is one of the reasons why I use a very loaded terminology when describing Christianity. I call it a denial of death cult, because it is a cult that literally, as you've heard my co-host say, deny the fact that death is a real thing. So they're not just saying, "Oh no, death is not a big deal. Well, death wears your thing." It's, you don't really die. You're only transitioning from one life form to another life form, but you're always you. And so this is, I can assure you, not
and
what.
the theist does what they think about life and death is life in relation to God and so forth, right?
Well, but
That
it's still, it's
concept.
conscious
Death
existence.
is being, yeah, and that's the thing, is like there are obviously different definitions of what the Christian
Right, and you think the
of death.
conscious existence continues, and
Yes,
that is exactly what I'm talking about. So I'm not misrepresenting you.
yeah. Oh, I know.
Um,
I was
okay.
just seeing if you're aware of the other stuff too, if you were going to add that in, or if you just had a singular point with that.
Yeah, no, I would simply say that one of the reasons one of the places where there will be a disconnect is, I believe that death is death. It is not life continued. It is the end of life. And so when people talk about what happens after death, I hear a fundamental disconnect. It's an oxymoronic question. What happens after death? If anything happens after death, you didn't die. So that's the thing. It's like asking, well, what was I before I was born? Well, you were nothing before you were born. So death. I often describe it this way: death is the exact same state that you were in exactly a year before your parents met. That's that's what it is. There's no floating around in some existential goo wondering when you're going to be born and all the things you're missing out on. You weren't here. And when you die, you're not here. It's a cessation of life. It's not simply a shedding of skin. Snakes, when they molt, they don't die. They just shed their skin. And Christians talk about death as if we're just molting. That's not the case. And so when you talk to a secular person or a scientist, or, we get into some of these moral issues about life and death, um, if you think death is molting your skin and moving on to the next iteration, we're having a very different conversation.
Right. Absolutely. I agree with
So,
that.
since this is just a kind of an introduction to the topic, I'm going to let that serve as introduction. I will mention some of the topics that we will be discussing, the 6 topics, if I can remember them off the top of my head. Abortion, that's next week. Andrew, Darren, Teddy, Russell. I will make, my plan is to make a recorded opening statement and just have it played on the show. I'll also do a separate write-up on abortion. That show will go as long as it goes, but that will be the only show that deals with a single topic. I think it's that important. So, and I think it's important enough so that I'm not on it. So we're gonna do abortion next week, and then among the other topics, in no particular order that I mentioned here, self-defense, war. That's 3: abortion, self-defense, war,
Sorry,
suicide.
David, I wouldn't help you.
Yeah, that's right. Suicide,
go.
euthanasia, and dash it. I'm gonna have to look at the list. It's okay. I got it. Okay, war. Yeah, abortion, death penalty, self-defense, suicide, euthanasia, war. And I have a bonus 7th topic that I'm just gonna keep and maybe mention at the end as a wild card. We'll see. And so I'm going to go ahead and make a closing statement right now. And Russell, if you want to make a close after this, you can. So you can have the last word. This is going to be an interesting series. But one of the things that will make it interesting is, I think that we're all going to learn how differently we think about these things, and how the opening assumptions that we have about life and death really affect and infect our thinking on these things. I think that you will be surprised, as you probably were a little bit today, at where some of the disagreements lie. I look at a biblical passage and I see killing and taking of innocent blood and murder, and the Christian looks at it and says, "No, that didn't happen at all. That's not what that is." Really? If we can't agree on simple words like that, I have no idea what basis we're going to agree when the conversation gets harder. Russell said something interesting in his opening statement. He has no idea how we could possibly come to any agreement. I agree with that. I have no idea how one possibly comes to an agreement when you can't even agree on what you mean when you say life and death. And you can't even understand what it means to take a life, or to be born, or to die. I don't see how we can come to those conclusions. And when we're thinking about these things scientifically, well, there's scientific thinking, there's biological thinking. Okay, that's one way we can do it. And there's just kind of a fantasy based way of thinking. And the fantasy-based way of thinking is to kind of think like a child on this. Well, life, we were always alive. And the stork, they came and delivered us, to our mummy's tummy, or however storks do the delivery. But you're here. You've always been here in some way or another. And when a child encounters death in some way, one of their friends or some member of the church or a grandparent, or maybe one of their little friends who die tragically, because little ones die too. Well, they're not dead, honey. God needed another angel. They just got their wings. This is fantasy-based thinking. If you just progress this to the way Christians think as adults, it sounds a lot like the fantasy-based thinking that they give their 8-year-olds. It's not rational. And so I have no idea how to have a conversation on abortion with someone who believes that we were possibly sinners before we were born. This is not rational anymore. We have no point of contact. And so I have no idea how that conversation is supposed to proceed. I don't know how we're supposed to talk about something as emotionally sensitive as suicide and euthanasia when the Christian says, I don't care how miserable your life is, your life doesn't belong to you. You don't get to make those decisions. That's not your life. It's not yours. You'll hear a little bit more next week when I do a comment on abortion. But I just wanted to take this show to point out where some of the pitfalls were and to introduce some of the foundations of this. And I think that where we end up with is this is going to get really weird before it's over. And I can't wait to see it. Russell, you have the last word.
Yeah, this was fun, man. I appreciate your comments. I appreciate you challenging me in certain areas that I haven't looked into in a while as well. Yeah, so I don't know where we'd go either. If you're gonna if David's gonna sit there and dismiss our worldview out of hand, then I don't know where we could go. Instead of trying to understand each other, he just dismisses it in a way. But he's still having the conversation anyway, so maybe we can help him understand. So as Christians, I hope that everybody's ready to come on as we get into this time. I think we laid out a lot of the issues and our thoughts on it. And I don't think that people that are Christian should be disqualified from having a rational discussion. I think these philosophies and stuff about life and worldview have been around for ages. And if we had that mentality from early on, we would never be where we are today. So until then, I'm signing off. David, it was always fun. Thanks again for having me, guys. And yeah, I'm out.
Tell them where Pora can be found, because you got good stuff going on Pora. You're
Yes,
losing David Paulman. We all love
Yeah.
David Paulman.
Yeah,
So,
David's
what do you
moving
got going
on. He's moving PRA on YouTube. You can also see us on Instagram, Facebook. We're about to open the Twitch to get us on there. I don't know why, but I'm gonna try. But yeah, so proselytize or apostatize, that's the name of the show. We're actually having a really good show later on today about autism, because it is Autism Awareness Month. Next week we'll have Hugh Ross on, so that will be fun. We're going to be talking about weather and climate change, because we're not climate deniers. Okay, not all Christians think that climate change is fake. Okay,
Will you do
yes.
me a favor and ask Hugh, for your old buddy Dave, ask Hugh about lights in the sky and little green men?
Yeah.
Would you do that
I
for
can't
me?
already sent my questions out, but maybe for a fun question, I can ask him about that. Anything specific there?
I think anything having to do with it would just be a good time had by all. Because look, I used to be a real Hugh Ross fan, don't let Hugh Ross listen to this part. I used to be a real Hugh Ross fan, but I unfortunately came to the conclusion that I think Hugh Ross is cracked. I've seen him in interviews on his book, Lights in the Sky and Little Green Men. I think that's the order of it. Maybe it's Little Green Men and Lights in the Sky, but you can easily find it in fine bookstores everywhere. He believes in he believes that alien abduction stories, only about 1 or 2% of them are real, but he does believe that some percent of them are real. But it's not aliens; it's demons crashing to Earth in spaceship-like form. Just
It's an
mention the book
interesting
for
read.
me.
He bases that off a Paris, a writer from Paris. He uses it in that. So I would have to look up his name's Jacques something. I can't remember off the top of my head, but yeah, I will. That's yeah. We have him on next week on PRA. So
You're familiar
join
with
us.
his theories, though, right?
I am.
Yeah.
I am.
Yeah.
So we're gonna, we're gonna have that for Autism Awareness Month. Tune in. We're gonna discuss why or how autism affects faith. Should be fun. I've got 2 guests, our friend Aaron Burnett and Nick Peters. So, yeah, join us then.
Oh, good. That's a very important subject. Thank you. And to everyone out there, we will see you next week. Next week, abortion, Teddy, Darren, Andrew, Russell. See you then.